Well, hello. Day two of 30. And so I'm just at a cafe here in Cumbaya. It's called the Treehouse. I forgot that they play their music a little bit loud. But anyway, hopefully you can hear me okay. You've got some nice, oldies in the background. I love an oldie. Okay, so today I thought let's just kind of break things into different themes. And so I thought today I'd talk about all the times I have sold everything, the countries that I've lived in, and just kind of how that went over the course of my life. And then I thought maybe tomorrow I talk about my career and how I went from, being a corporate securities paralegal to what it is that I do now. So, and just kind of my career path and how that all happened, because I know some people are interested in that. And then what else can we talk about? I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah. Anyway, we'll go with that. Um, So let me just introduce myself. If you're new here, I'm Paige Royal, and I'm a breakthrough specialist, and I help coaches stay confident when money enters the conversation so that they get less, I need to think about it, and more yeses. And so we deal with that awkward conversation, that awkward part of the conversation when we're really confident, we know we're a great coach, we believe in our offer and all those kinds of things, but then it comes that inevitable part of the conversation where we have to say, oh, price. And when we attach value to something that's personal to us, it gets personal real fast. So that's what I help coaches with. And I help them with that and get more yeses, the pricing breakthrough for coaches. And I also have something else that I'm doing, which you probably saw a post on below this one on Trail Talks. And it's just opening up the floor to questions for coaches that are new to coaching and up to a few years into it and have some questions that they want to ask someone who's been through the trenches, and learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes and all those kinds of things. So, and the other thing that, Trail Talks is really great for is sometimes we can feel super alone as an entrepreneur, as a coach. And I almost thought that they turned the music off, but they didn't. Um, but anyway, I suppose I could ask them, but anyway. Um, yeah, and it's just like feeling isolated, and feeling alone and a lot of the times misunderstood, especially when we're living a lifestyle that doesn't follow dotting the I's and crossing the T's like me. So if you're new here, I've never been married. I don't have any kids. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm able to do what it is that I do. But not the only reason, obviously. Comes down to choices. But I would say let's just talk about my journey with travel. And I'm just going to see. I'm going to actually just see if I get a little further away from this. That's pretty loud. Oh, I think this might be better. Okay, here we go. Not a lot better, but yeah. So anyway, now we're sitting at a table and we're getting all comfy. Yeah, so I remember I started traveling when I was quite young. I was in a jazz band. I used to play the trumpet once upon a time. And the first place that I went to was Florida. And went to Chicago first to play, and then in Florida at SeaWorld, I think it was, that we played at. And then I flew in grade 10, I flew to Germany. But it wasn't until I had met this guy who I was, I guess, my boyfriend for a while, who was from New Zealand. And I thought, I'm going to go there and visit. So I banked all my holidays. I was working as a legal assistant at the time in corporate securities again. And banked all my holidays for a month. I worked crazy amount of overtime. And yeah, so I ended up going to New Zealand, and I hiked this trail called the Milford Track, and I thought to myself, as I'm looking at, can't even count on two hands how many waterfalls I was looking at. I was like, if this is what this is like, what's the rest of the world like? And my boss at the time knew it. And he was just like, I got a 50-50 chance whether she's going to stick around. And I was not going to. I spent the next year working my ass off, saving all my money, and I sold everything I owned. Actually, my mom just found a note that I left on how to sell my car, how to sell whatever. I packed everything up, put it in the basement of my mom's house. I think I was around 24 or 25 years old, and I moved to England, to London. And I spent 2 years working and traveling there. That's where when I did the majority of my traveling. Through Europe, because England's such a great hub. It has like 4 airports around the city, so you can go pretty much anywhere. And that was at a time when there was like Ryanair and EasyJet, and you could fly for 1 pence plus tax. So it would end up being like 15 pounds to go anywhere in Europe and even into the Middle East as well, because I went to Egypt and stuff like that. So anyway, so that was that. So I had packed up, sold everything, sold my car, put in my mom's basement, or put everything in my mom's basement, and went to England. And then when I left England, I decided I wasn't ready to go home to Ontario, so I went to Whistler. I went to British Columbia in Canada. So I spent a few years there, working for the president and his executive assistant, who I loved. And then I left there and went to Vancouver for 5 years. And then I decided I needed to go back to home to Ontario. But before I do that, I'm gonna sell everything. I even sold my plants. Like I literally sold my plants to a guy who was like just who loved them, and he was like, "Can I buy these from you?" And I was like, "Sure." So, and I had like a yard sale in my apartment, so people would come from Craigslist, because Craigslist was the thing in Vancouver. And they would come into my apartment. It was like a yard sale inside my apartment. People were like, "You're nuts," and I was like, "I had all great people." Um, So I left there and I flew to Guatemala. I spent 6 weeks in a Spanish school living with a family. And then I went to Costa Rica and spent a few months there. And then I went to Panama because I had to do a visa run. Because at that time you could only spend 90 days in Costa Rica before you had to get it stamped again. And so you would just go to the border, cross over, and then come back. But I went to Isla Vestamentos and another island, in Panama as well. It was beautiful. And so then I flew home to Ontario, and then I ended up in Ontario for a while. That's where I had to really face, that's where my personal development journey sort of really began, because I had to face all the things that I had, I would say, run from, all the family stuff, all of just everything. It was a crazy journey. And so then I decided in the end of 2017, well, I had quit my job before I was ready, but we're going to do the career stuff, yes, tomorrow. And so I decided I'm going to take off again. So I sold my condo, I sold everything, put a lot of it into storage, and put, oh, the girl's going to take my, it's okay. I'm just doing a video on the music. Yeah. No, no, it's okay. I'll be done soon. Gracias. Um, and so I decided, you know what, I'm going to sell everything. So I sold my car, sold my condo, and then I bought my van, Gold Member, and my trailer, Foxy Cleopatra, and I took off to the States. And I lived out of my trailer for 6 months. I spent some of the time in North Carolina and then most of the time in Arizona, in Catalina State Park. So that was amazing. And spent some weekends in Mesa because I was visiting one of my friend's parents there and all sorts of stuff. So that was 6 months. And then I went back to Ontario, got my favorite place I've ever lived, which was in Horseshoe Valley. Mountain bike trails like 30 seconds from the time I got out off my stairs of my condo to hitting the single track. It was amazing. And then I was back in Ontario, and then I decided, okay, I in the pandemic, the owner had sold that condo, so I had to move to Collingwood. And after a few years being in Collingwood, the question came from someone yesterday, actually, like, how'd you end up in Ecuador? Or how'd you end up down here in Central and South America? And I just was like, what happened in Collingwood was there were these two people, and their names are worth mentioning because they are the reason that I just started living. And it was two people passed away, and one of them had sold me my van, gold number, and that was Dan Pegalo. The other one was Linda Brigman, and that was my friend Anne's best friend. And I don't know what it was about that, that it just hit me so hard. And I thought to myself, like, what am I waiting for? Like, to do this, for everything to be perfect. I think I just did a post on that yesterday. It's like this live. It's like I have these loud music, loud cars in the street. I'm like, it's not perfect, but whatever. It is, and it is what it is. And I love not perfect. I used to be such a huge perfectionist, and I can still fall into that. I don't think I fall into that anymore, actually. I don't really give a shit. I'm like, just show up. Show up where and how you are. And I have to tell you that Central and South America, it's not quiet. It's not like Canada and the States. It's louder in these places. So anyway, so yeah, so I thought to myself when they passed, I was just like, and they had happened fast. One was sudden and one was like 4 months or 5 months or something like that. And I thought, oh my God, like what am I waiting for? Let's go and see, because I had this dream of going to Costa Rica and living there um, since 2007 when I first started going there. I thought I'm going to live here one day. I didn't know how because I was a corporate securities or I was like in corporate, for a long time, and I didn't know how. And I just thought, well, I'm going to make it happen. Don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I went down, and so I was in Costa Rica for between dogs and horns. I was in Costa Rica for 18 months, and I would say living pretty out of alignment. I ended up getting pretty sick there for off and on for 5 months before I finally was just like, okay, yeah, it's time to head out. And so, oh darn, I thought it was off. Um, Before it was time to head off, and so I left there and I went to Colombia. I went to Medellin, and that was pretty tough because I was still healing. I could see, like, when I look back at my videos that I did back then, and like my eyes were just, I was so sick. But I did a lot of recovering there, and I spent 5 months there. And then I packed up and left there and went back home to Canada for 3 months, which was really nice. I hadn't been home in over a year, and I wanted to see my nephew and stuff like that, and my family. And so that was really great. And then I left again, and I had this nudge that said, like, go to Costa Rica. And I was like, what? Like, WTF, I was like, that place, like, is like in the end was really tough, and but anyway, I went back. I stayed for 6 weeks, and people always ask me, how did I end up in Ecuador? Well, I followed a guy, and that didn't work out, but that was okay because I think he was the catalyst to get me here, because so many amazing things have happened since I've been here. And I don't know if it's being so close to the equator, in that vortex, that energy vortex, or what it is, but I'll take it. So yeah, so that has been my journey. So there's 6 different countries that I've lived in, 4 different continents. Um, and that's been my life in terms of travel. I've always kind of lived outside of the box on that. And I've really come to learn, like, I never would have called myself like a digital nomad, because I think when I first came down here, I wasn't expecting to go to any other countries. Like, I really wasn't. I was like, I'm just going to go to Costa Rica, and I think this is going to be it. And I wanted to live there a year because I wanted to see what it would be like if one day I was to buy something or build something. I wanted to see what the weather was like and what I would need. And yeah, it's just not my place. And it's my place to visit, but not to live full time. So yeah, so I spent yeah, so I thought that that was going to happen, but then it didn't. And then I ended up in South America, which wasn't even on my list of places to go, to be quite frank, and ended up in Colombia, which was amazing. I love Colombia. Um, and then ended up in Ecuador, which I love. I feel like I'll be coming back here for sure. So, but you never know what life is gonna, kind of throw at you. Whoever's on here, say hi. I love to say hi. I'm almost at the end here, so gonna wrap things up. But hopefully that gives you an idea of like me selling everything I owned 4 times, living in 6 different countries, and I figured out like what it takes to to relocate basically, and the things that you just have to figure out what the things that are important to you, and then as soon as you get there you need to look for them. You also have to know that like it takes a little bit for your nervous system to settle into a new place and all those kinds of things, right? So if anybody has any questions on those kinds of things, let me know. um I'm happy to answer them, and if you have any questions about like my life, ask away. I'm happy to answer. So I'm going to love yous and leave yous. And that's day 2. What were we calling this? Just my journey in different countries and selling everything and all those kinds of things. So we will see you tomorrow for my career path. Have a good one.